Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, the Shark, and Stryker. Today is our 113th episode, and we're discussing the 1999 The Simpsons episode, Monty Can't Buy Love. So, let's get things started.
Ooh, the Simpsons.
Hopefully, had to start like that. But yeah, of course, The Simpsons needs no introduction, being the most popular cartoons of all time. Pretty much if you have been alive in the past, 45 years, you have probably seen at least one fragment of The Simpsons with something. So, really, there's really no need to go too in-depth about it or its legacy of that. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, despite not really growing up per se with it, I am very much familiar with it, and it has had a fairly decent impact on my life, from like the Simpsons game to the comics that I read in middle school to even some of the episodes that I saw later on down the road.
Yep. Yeah, the Simpsons comics are really good too. I kind of wish we could talk about those because they were really, really funny, just as well written as the show at times. And
Yeah.
Yep. But this episode is actually from season 10, which is kind of a transitional season from like the classic era Simpsons to like the lesser Simpsons. But I always thought it wasn't too bad, and this episode in particular is a pretty fun one. Of course, before we talk about the actual contents of the episode, we have to talk about both Bart's chalkboard gag, which is I have neither been there nor done that, and the couch gag, which when the Simpsons all run to the couch, they all start doing a kick line, followed by a bunch of other women coming up and doing it. The living room wall basically opens up to reveal jugglers, magicians, balancing elephants, and Santa's little helper all jumping through a hoop, which definitely was a funny one. Let's do it that way for our couch gag. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, and then the elephants in the back just start standing on two legs and then one leg. Honestly, it's pretty adorable. I imagine Elephant Peach and Daisy doing something similar.
That'd be adorable. That would be adorable. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, there's a little fun fact about this coach gag that it's one of the few coach gag that it's reused in more than one episode. The reason that is because this is one of the longest coach gags, and they tend to reuse it whenever their episode doesn't meet the time quota. So it's like, oh, okay, we still need to fill some time, throw this specific coach gag here.
Ah, that is interesting. I actually did not know that. Wow.
That's neat.
I can kind of see why in this case, because yeah, this is a little bit rushed in some parts, but still it's a fun one. So, the episode itself begins with the Simpsons watching a TV show called Cash In Your Legacy. Moe is having an antique beer tap from the turn of the century appraise, and the appraiser says it's never been washed. As a pretty cute good joke, Moe basically nervously says, "Oh yeah, I've been meaning to wash it, but turn of the century and all." Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, I also like what happens next when Homer wrote something on the tap, and Moe gets so mad he immediately grabs the rifle that Principal Skinner was holding in a case. He just pulls it out. He's like, "I'll kill him!" Okay, and then it turns to dust, and he's like, "Oh."
yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong thing about The Simpsons. All the jokes and the comedy and whatnot is rapid fire. Every turn around the bend, there's at least some form of joke there that other shows like Family Guy and American Dad would somewhat do in terms of shock value, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, this is another case of that. But I like the comedy here. It's genuine. It doesn't really rely on gaffes and all that much, and it's pretty great.
Yeah, it definitely is. Of course, I actually just want to go back for a second. I think what it is probably the quick gag is the person says, "Someone carved Homer rocks on the handle," and Homer's sitting on Homer says, "And I do." Woo!
Yeah,
I think
he's
it's that.
Oh,
yeah, it's great. It's great. But then Marge arrives and basically berates the family for being so lazy, saying it's a beautiful day. We get a really funny exchange. When did we stop going for nature walks? When the kid said it was too fat to carry home.
Yeah, I liked that joke.
Yeah, also, I'm not going to try to do a Marge Simpson impression because I don't want my throat to scratch up. But
yeah, I feel that.
She basically then berates her kids for being so lazy, as Bart tries to tell her that they're not, but is too lazy to finish this sentence. He tells Lisa to do it, but she goes, finish it, and then she just falls asleep and falls off the couch. Again, it's one
Yeah,
of those
not
jokes
helping
that
your
doesn't-
case there, you two.
Yeah, it's one of those jokes that probably doesn't sound funny, but when you actually watch it, it really, really does work.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that Marge says that they'll talk about their day. As she mentioned, she wrote a poem about a duck, which obviously was enough to get the Simpsons out and about because we cut to them walking outside. Homer, of course, is complaining about everything, it being too bright, it being too hot, him getting tired, and him running out of things to complain about. Yep. Barney Gumble drives by and yells at them to get a horse, which sadly does not mean they're going to go see the Mickey Mouse short Get a Horse, because that would be amazing.
Yeah, especially the Simpsons coming out of the screen and messing with Mr. Burns or something like that.
True.
Yeah, that
what
would
a
be
shame. What a
awesome.
shame. But Homer excitedly says that they can get a horse, as Marge says no. Then Homer points out that they can ride some dogs. Bart shows up riding on a dog before it spins in a circle and knocks him off. And it's this when I'm
Yeah.
wondering, wait, can't Lisa just call Elsa from We're Back at Dinosaurs story? She should know her after all.
Nice.
Yeah,
Alternatively, Bart can get Stampy so they can ride an elephant.
that is also
Nice.
true. But we then cut to the Simpsons walking through town as Marge basically rambles about the places she buys buttons and yarn from, then where the bookmobile lady lives. I do like Bart's little comment here where he turns to Homer and he whispers, "Kill me," over it. You know, it's so boring in that. But then, of course, Lisa points out something exciting happening, consisting of clowns, jugglers, unicyclists, and literally everybody in town running towards it. One thing I always like about The Simpsons, as a cute, underrated running gag, is how boring Marge is. Because when Marge sees it, she looks at all this going on, she says, "Oh, wow, we can read about this tomorrow in the newspaper."
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow, we can read about this tomorrow in the newspaper.
exactly. Of course, Lisa asks why they can't see it now, but Marge says it isn't on their walking plan, but of course, the rest of the Simpsons don't want to hear this, so they just run to see what's happening. It turns out to be the opening of the Fortune Megastore, which is a spoof of a Virgin Megastores, which are very popular when this is being made and that.
Nice.
Homer gets champagne from a clown, which of course would have happened in The Simpsons regardless. Marge wonders why everyone wants to see it, and Homer says, "It's not a store, it's a megastore. Mega means good and store means thing." So obviously, the lessons he got from Lyle Landley sunk in with him. Now
Nice.
remember, mono means one, and rail means rail.
Yeah.
One rail.
Classic.
Two guys, one rail.
Okay.
Had to make
yes.
the joke.
Okay. But, yep, the Simpsons enter the store, which is truly gigantic and a pretty good and almost cinematic panning shot that you don't get a lot of in The Simpsons sometimes, you know? It is pretty cool that they did something like that.
Definitely.
Homer basically walks in front of a camera and scrubs his butt in front of it, which projects it on all the TVs in the store.
Classic
Yep.
Homer.
Yep. Homer notes that it has a shoplifting section with Nelson and the other bullies coming out and knowing that they're doing all their stealing there because it's so convenient. Oh, go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, about the cameras recording Homer, I was gonna say, at least not the bathroom recording him like in the time he went to Japan.
Right. Nice.
Nice.
Classic. But yeah, we do get another. Again, a lot of this section is pretty much a quick and you miss it gag, so it's kind of hard for us to describe them. But Marge basically, as walking through a store, she says, "Oh, it's nicer than the Quickie Mart." You see Apu coming around the corner, he starts crying. Marge goes, "Oh no, I didn't mean it, but it really is, Apu." "Oh, you're right." Which, yep. I mean, go ahead, Angron.
Man, that reminds me of that one scene from The Amazing World of Gumball where, like, Clayton, a blob of clay that can pretty much transform and imitate anyone, imitates Banana Joe. He's, like, holding 2 milk cartons, and he's, like, dancing around like, "I'm a banana milkshake, I'm a banana milkshake," and Gumball's like, he's so much funnier than when Banana Joe does it, and then Banana Joe just turns around, like, teary-eyed, and just like a single tear rolls down his face, and like dramatic sad music is playing in the background, and he's just like absolutely dead silent, like his whole freaking world shattered. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's what
Anyway,
this
go
moment
ahead,
is.
Shark. Yeah.
Like,
Go ahead,
okay.
Shark.
What actually happens is that, well, Apu is whimpering and Marge says he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but it's true." And Apu's like, "I know, but still," and he whimpers again.
Nice. But yeah, so what happens next basically is that Bart and Lisa both ask Homer for $100 to buy things. Marge basically starts saying, "You're spoiling the children," and that he hands her $100 bill and she just goes away, which is funny.
Yeah.
Otto is listening to music saying, "Man, it all sounds like Judas Priest," before it turns out he was listening to his own headphones all along.
Yeah. And
Lisa-
cutting back to that
Sorry.
moment where Homer hears Lisa asking for some money, it reminds you of the Simpsons game scene where like they defeat Matt Grinning, and like all of a sudden it's like Lisa's like, "You just vanquished your own creator," and like goes into the spiel, and then Homer's just like, "You make a provocative point, Lisa, and furthermore." And then both Homer and Bart start kicking him, and then Marge is like, "Stop kicking the man who told you. It isn't nice." Yes, man.
Yeah, good.
That was a great bit.
Classic, yep. So, but Lisa, meanwhile, is standing behind a big screen TV, which is playing the Kevin Costner movie The Postman. She excitedly says, "Ooh, wow, this movie really sucks." And she's not wrong. The Postman is not a good movie. She puts on the director's commentary, which is just Kevin Costner apologizing for it and basically saying, "Hey, people, come on. Didn't you like Field of Dreams? That was a good movie, right?" Which, yeah, probably was his reaction to The Postman, because, man, that movie was bad. And I do like this moment, too, because I'm such a sucker for these moments where Lisa says, "Oh, Kevin Costner, you try so hard." And it turns out he's literally inside the television giving the commentary live. He peeks his head out from like the screen and asks to get her a sandwich. Again, I'm a sucker for those kind of jokes like that, so that actually got a good laugh out of me.
Yeah, it would have been great if we got the actual Kevin Costner to do that, but then again, it would probably have cost a lot of money to get him anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just but basically what happens next is Bart puts a penny on the track of the mall train, causing it to derail and crash as he says, "Cool," and then runs away, which, one thing I do have to say, it's very lucky Peter Griffin wasn't on the mall train.
Oh man, now you're reminding me of him spinning around on the mall train while it's
Yeah.
at night, and like his half of his body mass is on like one side. It's messed up, but I love it.
Yep. We then cut to Mr. Burns and Smithers as Burns tells Smithers to hurry up. He has to demolish another orphanage. Smithers points out that the honking isn't working as Burns deploys the cow catcher, which pushes his way out of all the crowd. Comic book guy gets stuck in it and complains about it happening again, which, okay. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Worst wedgie ever.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, I love the how his line implies that either he's constantly being in situations when someone uses that on him, or Mr. Burns uses that so constantly, and yet he always gets caught up in it.
Yeah. It's either interpretation is really, really funny. But what happens is Burns steps out of the car and uses a taser to electrocute people, including Ned Flanders.
Nice.
Hi,
diddly.
Nice.
I had to do it. I had to do it.
It's all good. Burns then enters the building and says, "Books and cocoa in the same store? What's next? A talking banana?" Before Smithers says he doesn't see one. Burns says that a talking banana is ridiculous before getting sad over there not one existing, to which I have to say, he just had to wait a couple years and then the Minions had come out. So,
Oh gosh.
not that big of a deal. Mayor Quimby arrives and starts giving a speech saying that the world's most popular billionaire has arrived in the store. Burns, of course, think they're talking about him, but it turns out to be Arthur Fortune, who is a spoof of Virgin owner Richard Branson, who... This is in the day where he was considered like the cool, fun-loving, like exotic billionaire in that, which, yeah, definitely is different watching it in this day and age. But regardless, he arrives in a hot air balloon surrounded by money bags, as when he lands, he talks about all the things he did, which includes tobogganing Mount Everest, climbing Niagara Falls, and, in a really dark joke, knocking out Muhammad Ali by ambushing him in his house, which, yeah, if you know what was happening with Muhammad Ali by the time this episode was coming out, that is a kind of a dark joke.
Yeah, I'll
He then
bet.
said, yep.
I
Go-
kind of think,
go ahead,
yeah,
Chip.
like, I guess the joke is supposed that you're expected that he fought him fairly in a boxing ring, but nope, he just went to his house and took him by surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But it turns out that this is Arthur Fortune's 112th store and that he's giving away money to everybody. In really good satire that, again, it's so funny how timeless this bit is. Because, again, this feels like it could have been done today, is that he's giving away money, but he's doing it literally $1 at a time. Which is like something that's just so... It's like you think, oh, it's charitable. Then you stop and think how petty that is. It's like... You could easily do this today, make Arthur Fortune like a Mr. Beast style of influencer, and nothing would change.
Yeah, it kind of. Yeah, this is basically before the Great Recession, so like this sort of thing would have been a little mind blowing and bizarre, especially for that time of, especially for that era.
Yeah, it's just. But it turns out that Homer gets the first dollar, then he takes the next two in a pretty cute joke. Arthur Fortune then begins throwing all the money in the crowd as everybody cheers. I like how Burns basically looks up and says, "This man is insane." Then Flanders comes along with like a $10 bill, and Burns just shocks him for the money, which again, so petty but so hilarious.
Yep, in character for Burns and Smithers. Smithers, grab my cattle prods and this poor
yeah.
Paquan. No, not Paquan. Sharpay puppy. Right away, boss.
Nice. But the crowd all begins conging for Arthur Fortune, singing, "We love Arthur Fortune. He gave us $1." And again, which is really good satire, how this guy was like a complete like jerk and that is depicted as being like, really the same level of like jerkiness as Mr. Burns in his own way. They just love him because he gave money to them and he could do anything. But of course,
it
Burns
honestly feels like oh gosh, what was I gonna say? Like you guys gave us money. Like he's a little more likable, but only in the sense like a big old jar of nickels. Or no, not nickels. Yeah, I had a good joke, but I lost it.
Yeah, it's just. But basically, what happens is Burns makes Smither do a conga in his honor, singing "Conga like you mean it. Do not make me shock you." And he holds the like
Yeah.
like the taser to his like neck. That is funny. Like that's probably one of the better jokes of the episode that isn't related to. Well, we'll get to why later on. But
Yeah.
we then cut to Burns' mansion at night as he's watching a news report on how popular Arthur Fortune is. Kent Brockman's basically saying how billionaires like Arthur Fortune are fun-loving compared to joyless misers brooding in their mansion, a glass of brandy glipped in their long, spindly fingers and claw-like hands. To which Burns basically realizes that describes him, and he gets depressed, saying that he has everything, but there's no point if people don't truly love him. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
I'm Mr. Green Richmond. I'm Mr. Scum. I'm Mr. You're Here Forever. I'm Mr. No More Fun. They call me Burns Miser. Whatever I touch just sucks and sucks and sucks.
Nice.
I'm so much. Sir, isn't that copyright for Ronkin Bass? Nobody asked you, Smithers.
Great.
I had to.
It's all good. But basically, Smith says, "I love you, sir," and Burns instantly says, "Are you really still here?" And from here, something weird kind of happens. That Smithers just disappears in the rest of the episode after this, which again feels kind of weird because a lot of like the Homer and Burns antics feels like Smithers was meant to be a part of it, but they just cut him out for some reason. Oh, sorry for cutting you off there. Go ahead, Angron.
Oh, no, I didn't do anything.
Oh, all good. So what happens next is we cut to the next. Oh, go ahead, Shark. Sorry.
I think the reason Smithers isn't in the rest of the episode is because they just say a lot of the troubles he'll find is because Burns trusts Homer in this episode, and if his actually competent assistant was in this episode, a lot of things wouldn't have happened.
True. But basically what happens is we cut to the next day at the nuclear plant as Homer is juggling the carbon rods before Burns shows up and he drops them, causing them to explode. We then get probably the dirtiest exchange of the episode, and one of the dirtiest, I think, of all Simpsons history, which is, Mr. Burns, Simpson, I need your help. I want to be loved. And Homer just stares at him for a couple and says, well, I'll need some beer first. And it's like, wow. Like I was amazed I could get away with stuff like that, but still. But Burns then clarifies that he wants Homer to look at him the same way that Homer looks at Arthur Fortune. Homer then moans about Arthur Fortune in a pretty cute running gag, and Burns says that's what he wants. He insults Homer, basically saying, I want the slovenly common folk like you to adore me. And Homer basically says, oh, don't call us slovenly, and he starts taking notes. That's a good idea. Tell me more, fatty. Which again,
Oh gosh.
again, great timing there. But we cut to the two of them throwing silver dollars off from a roof, but because they're coins, they're basically breaking windows and hurting people. It's here we got a joke that really, for me, this is the one joke that really doesn't work in the episode. Lenny gets a coin stuck in his head. He pulls it out and it starts squirting blood everywhere. Carl puts it back in for him, telling him he's seeing a doctor, as Lenny tells him off. He then greets a passing woman by tipping his coin, like a guy would tip his hat, causing blood to squirt everywhere, which this doesn't feel like a Simpsons joke for me. This feels like something like that I think like Family Guy would have done. Maybe because it's around the time Family Guy came out and they wanted to try and play catch up in that, but I don't know, it just feels weird for the Simpsons to do that kind of joke with like blood squirting everywhere in that. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but Shark, you were gonna say?
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Also, I was gonna say, well, Lenny constantly gets stuff in his eye, so he's glad that for once it's another place of his body.
that is true. That is true.
Ah.
Good point. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah.
My eye! The doctor said I wasn't supposed to get pudding in it! Classic. Yeah. But basically, we then cut back to the nuclear plant as Burns is reading a billionaire magazine, lamenting how he's so unpopular. I'm even behind Adam Sandler. But Burns would be more popular than Adam Sandler when Jack and Jill came out, but then he'd lose popularity again once Uncut Gems came out. So, kind of evened out there.
Mm-hmm.
Homer then offers Burns to donate to charity, as I like Burns' reaction to that. Donate to charity? What a novel idea! And then he writes like a giant novelty check to a children's hospital with it unfolding in Homer's pants pocket. Burns says that he now just has to sit back and wait for the accolades to come in, sitting at his desk until night comes. And of course, we got a joke that is probably the funniest joke of the episode to me, with the crickets doing like the cricket chirping gag, and probably what is the funniest joke of the episode. Burns presses a small button on his desk labeled cricket poison, and it kills them all. And they also going like coughing, and then the cricket chirps stop. And it's one of those things like, it's so simple yet so funny. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah. Yeah, I also like the check folding out in Homer's pants gag, where he's like preparing to walk out the door, and then he gets caught, and he's like, and just steps aside. I like those kinds of gags, even if they're not always as effective. But yeah, here it definitely works. Also, the cricket poison. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It really is good. The next day, Burns goes to the hospital and demands where his accolades are. The secretary says that they have no knowledge of Burns donating anything, but in probably another really funny gag, she says, oh, we got a large contribution yesterday from Homer Simpson. Burns turns around to see a giant statue of Homer playing with children, and it being the Homer J. Simpson wing. And I love this part where Burns starts kicking the giant Homer statue. It's not fair! It's not fair! And he does it for like maybe 30 seconds before he turns back to the secretary and says, oh, morphine, please. Classic.
Yeah.
It's one of those jokes that I get, and verbally it doesn't sound funny, but when you see it in like how it moves, it really works. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Sorry, hit enter by accident.
Angron, you were saying?
I said I hit enter by accident.
Yeah. We then cut back to the Simpsons household as Homer laughs, having the wing named after him instead of Mr. Burns. Then notes that Burns must be mad at him. Burns says that he will be once the morphine wears off, then dances around the room and starts singing. But they got another line that's just so like simple and yet so funny with Homer saying, if people knew the real Monty Burns, the silver dollar throwing morphine addict you become, they might actually like you.
Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Chuck.
I was strolling through the gas one day.
Yeah.
Classic.
Uh,
Lisa then mentions that he has to get his face out there, and then we cut to a really detailed and not flattering close-up of Mr. Burns' face. Unfortunately, even though we see that, we do not see him say, "Does this look unsure to you?" with this
Yeah.
close-up. Also
Either
had to get that
or the
reference.
flap scream.
That too. Sure. But basically, Lisa then says that he should go on the radio instead, as Burns excitedly mentions how he's looking forward to going on Don McNeil and his Breakfast Club, which was an
boy.
actual radio show of the 30s, believe it or not. So props on them for doing research. But Bart explains that the most popular radio show nowadays is called Jerry Rude and the Bathroom Bunch, as Marge says that Burns won't like that show. Burns asks them if they don't think he's hip, as the family just stares at him blankly. We then cut to the radio station as we see Jerry Rude's show. Now, Jerry Rude is basically a parody of Howard Stern, the American radio show host in that. This is a person that, for a long time, I didn't think was a real person, because the only thing I saw of him was the biopic in that, and I thought that it was one of those things where it said, based on a true story. I thought, oh yeah, that's part of the joke. It was based on a true story. And when he made public appearances, I thought, oh yeah, it's the actor playing the Howard Stern character, like how Rowan Atkinson would do Mr. Bean stuff in character. So definitely was interesting to find out that, wait, no, this is an actual guy.
Uh-huh.
Yep. But anyway, Mr. Homer then gives Mr. Burns a sheet of paper with some jokes about how white people are different from black people, which has a really good payoff seconds later. It's one of those things where you're thinking, oh God, what is it going to be? But when they actually reveal it, it is probably one of the funniest jokes of the episode. But Burns walks into the recording room and greets Jerry, who basically says, let's get this geezer over it so we can interview the lesbian gladiators, which raises a lot of questions. But then
I want to see that.
Yep. We get the payoff to the joke, which is Homer saying, white people have names like Lenny, and black people have names like Carl. It's one of those things that I get. It's so stupid, and yet it's so in character for Homer. That's what he thinks.
Yep.
It really, really does work.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it's one of those jokes that you wouldn't think sounds good, but then you see it in action, and it's pretty funny.
Yeah,
now.
It is. But basically, Burns tells Jerry Rude not to hold back, saying he can make fun of his love of cashews and stuff. Jerry asks Burns how many times he goes to the bathroom, as Burns says, oh, maybe about 40 or 50. When do we go on the air? It turns out they're on the air, as Jerry calls Burns Skeletor. Unfortunately, the show does not have Skeletor on it, because it'd be way funnier if it was. Instead of the Howard Stern ripoff, it was just Skeletor insulting him. Mr. Burns, you ignoramus! You old fossil! You are sometimes even older than me, and you can't help me destroy He-Man! If only.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah.
And then Burns it would be the roles reversed, and Burns would be like, Skeletor, you idiot! No, you are making me look bad on public radio. Yeah, it was my plan the whole time. Now.
Nice. But basically, Jerry Rude asks Mr. Burns very insulting questions, which including what was your first gay experience? And Burns, being an old man, says, oh, it was with my father in the park when we had a picnic. We had a gay old time. We ate Wheaties that day, which, again, is a joke that shouldn't be funny, but I think the way Mr. Burns is so earnest when he says it is why it works.
Yeah.
Probably the funniest part of the sequence is when he says, did you ever murder anyone, Mr. Burns? And he basically says, murder? Well, and he darts his eyes at everyone. Mistakes have been made. And it's again, that's probably the best joke of this little sequence but Jerry basically begins playing fart noises over Mr. Burns, and Burns running over, basically screaming, attention wireless listeners, most of the sounds being made in the microphone is not me. And then he collapses on the floor as Jerry still plays fart noises over Mr. Burns and that. We then cut back to... Yep. I'll go ahead, sorry.
late 90s, early 2000s radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we then come back to the car as basically Burns mentions how it didn't work, and Homer says, "It's a good thing those lesbian gladiators know CPR." Burns,
Nice.
Yep. Burns laments how he'll never be as popular as Arthur Fortune, as Homer says how he gave the Springfield Zoo 2 male pandas and got them to mate. Burns basically notes how stunts like that are what people want, and we get another good joke with Homer saying, "I'm not that easily impressed. Oh, wow, look, a blue car!" Again, like I say, it's a lot of his Dan Castanella's delivery because he is so funny with it.
Yeah.
But Burns says that he's going to get something that people have been searching for years. Homer says, "A sober Irishman," which, okay, that's an interesting joke there. Burns shakes his head, and we then cut to them in a helicopter as they fly over Loch Ness with two really cute moments here. Number one is that the background music here sounds like the Jurassic Park theme. And number two, we have really a really cute throwaway joke with Homer saying, "Wow, that was a long helicopter ride," implying that they rode all the way from Springfield to Loch Ness.
Yeah.
But
It also makes me think of an old joke from a previous episode. Are we in the India yet? No. Are we in the India yet? No. Are we in the India? No. Wait. We are.
Nice.
Classic. But, go ahead, Matt.
I'm thinking the reason they made that Irish joke is because from here on, we're making Scottish jokes and didn't want the Irish to feel left out.
Nice.
True. Yep. Basically, we cut back to Scotland as Homer's asking Mr. Burns if he thinks he could do it, knowing that the Loch Ness Monster has eluded both Leonard Nimoy and Peter Graves. It turns out that both Professor Frink and Groundskeeper Willie are on the expedition, which is good because both of them are some of my all-time favorite Simpsons characters.
Yeah,
Frink points. Yeah, they definitely are some of the best ones. Frink points out all the ridiculous equipment he brought, as Groundskeeper Willie points out, "The whole town came out, and they've never been more excited." And the whole town is just like 5 people who are just staring at it with like blank expressions, and they just do like a little shrugging thing. So yeah, we're gonna get a lot of jokes like that about the Scots being very emotionless. So get ready for it. Willie then sees his parents, and he notes how his father owns the tavern that has the pool table I was conceived, born, and educated on.
Yeah.
Willie then approaches his parents, and probably one of the funniest bits of the episode, of this sequence, which is the funniest part of the episode, they have a very emotionless conversation about Willie, basically. It's like, "So, you're here. I need to be leaving soon. And then they just stare at each other blankly and walk away.
Yeah.
It's so
very funny.
Homer basically attempts to put on an old-timey diving suit, but is too fat for it. Burns arrives and angrily asks them for his monster, asking what he's paying them for. Homer says that he works in the power plant for Burns. Willie says that he's refusing to get paid, because Patrick learned from him when he painted Mr. Krabs' house. And Frink says that he was kidnapped and remembers that, "What with the grabbing and the taping and the tennis ball in the mouth that really hurt me." Professor Frink is so funny. He easily, this episode is like a 5 out of 10. It easily becomes a 6 out of 10 just from him and Willie alone because, again, they are so great. But Burns then shows them a little doll of the Loch Ness Monster with a Macarena Monster t-shirt on it and says that's what they're looking for.
Nice.
Homer dives into the lake as we see Burns, Frink, and Willie all huddled around the lake, with Willie wondering how Homer has survived being in there that long. It turns out that Homer left the lake hours ago and is just playing pinball in the local pub, still wearing the diving suit. I just love that that's the thing. He even has like the helmet on and everything. He's playing like Loch Ness Monster pinball.
I just like to imagine that Homer walked like in a straight line from like the shore to like the Irish pub, and like since then he saw the freaking pinball machine and was like, maybe I should play that for a while, and he just freaking loses track of time because of it. It's such a funny joke.
Yeah. It's just go ahead. Shark, you were saying first?
Yeah, I was gonna say Homer took a detour to Shell City and is currently drying up a sponge and a starfish.
Oof. Nice. And Matt?
I've got some Scottish friends. So from what they've told me, a guy showing up full diving suit to play pinball in a pub wouldn't even be top 10 weirdest that's ever happened in a pub.
Nice.
Yeah, amazing. But basically, what happens is we then cut back to the group at night as Frink notices that a giant amphibious monster is coming this way. It's gonna be huge. Yeah. It turns out it's just a tiny frog in his shoe, and probably again the moment that made me laugh the hardest is as Frink basically says, "Wait a minute, this isn't the monster locator. This is the frog exaggerator." Which again, it's such a simple joke in that, but it is so funny.
Yeah.
And then it's led up by another hilarious joke with Burns saying, "I don't believe this. We are the laughingstock of the entire town." As it cuts to the Scots just staring at them with completely dead expressions, like they're not live, they're not even moving. They're just staring at them with like pure hatred, and that is so funny how they do it.
Yep, not even an eye.
Yep, not even that. Homer says that they'll find the monster no matter how long it takes, then mentions how he likes wearing a kilt, saying he's a size 4 and twirls around to reveal he's not wearing underwear. The Scots react to this, of course, by not reacting, simply going, "Ich, I, ick." Which again is a really funny moment.
Yeah.
Burns notes that they won't find the monster with all the water and orders Frink to drain the lake using the D-Lockinator, which, number 1, is not named by Dr. Doofenshmirtz, and number 2, it's just a really funny joke. It's literally just a water pump. You think oh, it's a giant fancy scientific equipment. It's literally just a water pump, and he's pumping the water out of Loch Ness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just imagine one day at Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated, Doofenshmirtz decides to do some Scottish shenanigans instead of the tri-state area, and he's looking for his device, and he's like, "Hey Vanessa, have you Lockinator? I can't go to Scotland without it to drain the lock and have all the people of Scotland dehydrate." Yeah, some weird bald guy in a green tuxedo came by asking for it. He looked kind of yellow. I think he might need to get his liver looked at. Huh, yeah, maybe. And you what? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. But it turns out that we cut to hours later with Frink still using the water pump, as it turns out that they completely flooded the nearby town. And we then get probably the last emotionless Scotsman joke, because one of them says, "We have lost everything we hold dear. Aye." And they just stare at each other and walk away. But it turns out that they finally drained the lake, as Burns thinks he sees the monster, but it turns out to be just a float from Willie's high school. I like the brief little gag of Homer seeing Stomp Aberdeen written on the side of it, and Homer says, "No way, Aberdeen rules!"
Nice.
But the model is then crushed by a gigantic foot as we get to see Nessie, which is why we are covering this episode, because she is a female, which is not said in the episode itself, but it's in both the script of the episode and the canon mobile spin-off game Simpsons Tapped Out, which is defunct, but it still is made by the Simpsons crew, so it counts. Interesting thing to note about Nessie is mostly the color scheme, which is purple with little tiny green spots in that. Apparently, this was an animation error because she was designed to be green, but when the show was sent overseas, she was apparently miscolored. Now, this is from the official DVD commentary, so see how truthful they're being, but definitely it's interesting if that happened, because purple is definitely not a color you really associate with the Loch Ness Monster, outside of something like, say, for example, Freddy FR7, to which I have to say it's a shame that Nessie wasn't here, but regardless. Oh, go ahead, Math.
A Simpsons character having an animation error where they colored it the wrong color? Wow, I've never heard that before. Oh, hey, how you doing, Tan Mr. Smithers?
Right. Yeah, that was so weird. Anyway, go ahead, Stryker.
I don't know why I had to make the joke they made Nessie look like Barney.
I was just gonna say that.
I definitely can see that, come to think of it. I wonder if that was intentional, or it wasn't intentional but became unintentional, let's say it that way. But regardless, she basically snarls and roars at the group as, in a pretty good joke, Homer looks at the Macarena Nessie doll, then back at the real thing just to confirm that it's actually her. Go ahead, Matt.
You guys saying the Barney thing now just gave me this, especially because of what we're going to be talking about here in a few seconds. I love you, you love me. Now
Oh,
get
gosh.
into my belly.
Nice. Classic. But basically what happens is Nessie's growls and roars are performed by Frank Welker, who definitely not a stranger to the podcast, let's put it that way.
Yep.
Burns demands that they capture her, but the trio just walk away whistling. Burns then says, "Fine, I'll do it myself," before Thanos did, as he rolls up his sleeves and prepares to fight the beast. We then cut to Nessie dangling off the helicopter as Willie is amazed. Basically, "How did you do it, Mr. Burns?" And Burns, "Yes, I was afraid for a minute when it swallowed me, but, well, you know what happened next," being a good joke because we don't know, of course, how the hell like a 90, 100-year-old man managed to do it. But we then cut back to Springfield as Kent Brockman gives a report about how Mr. Burns captured both a monster and their hearts, noting he's single. Selma says that's good enough for her as she puts in mouth spray. And it's here we get to the part of the episode that, again, really is a clever little bit of subversion here, because Burns introduces Nessie, calling her the ninth wonder of the world after the singing voice of Gomer Pyle. Nessie is unveiled as Milhouse knows that she's waking up. And here's where we get a really cute spoof of King Kong that is a pretty clever one. It's no King Homer, but what is. Basically, what happens is Burn basically pleads, "Please do not take flash photography. It will frighten the monster." However, in a hilarious joke, the camera flashes do absolutely nothing to Nessie. She actually seems to coo happily over the attention. But it's Mr. Burns that goes crazy because the camera flashes blind him. He stumbles around and basically crashes into a speaker, causing the stage to catch on fire. And again, Nessie is there just happily sitting in the tank of water, just watching this like blissfully in that.
Yeah, that's honestly a pretty funny juxtaposition. Like,
It really
where
is.
it's not the beast that predictably gets freaked out by all the flashing lights and the loud noises, but it's the freaking guy who is like, "Do not use flash photography." He's like not worrying about the beast; he's worrying about him. But he's basically using the beast as an excuse, and honestly, it's pretty freaking funny. Like, seeing Mr. Burns be the one to go berserk is just like both underwhelming and yet hilarious at the same time. I love it. Yeah, he's like, and like he causes the destruction, not the beast. It's even more funny.
I definitely can see that. Wow. But basically, what happens is that basically the entire audience runs away screaming as Burns basically says, "No, come back! You're supposed to love me!" To which he knows how Fluttershy feels now, obviously.
Indeed.
Go ahead, Shark.
I was about to say that, actually.
Ha!
Nice.
Great minds think alike, I guess. But we then cut to Burns sitting on the end of the dock, dejected, as Homer says that it's easier to be hated than loved, because to be loved you have to put in a lot of effort, but to be hated you don't have to do anything. And Mr. Burns, of course, takes that advice to heart. Go ahead, Shark.
Yeah, so you didn't mention it. That Homer says a pretty funny line. "Hey, if you wanted people to love you, you messed up."
Right. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's another really, really cute joke. But Burns basically takes it aside to heart, vowing to remain a selfish old man. Nessie shows up and coos at both of them, and then Homer says, "What should we do with Nessie? Throw it in the dumpster?" To which I love, that's the first thing he thinks to do with like the Loch Ness Monster. Let's throw it in a dumpster.
I mean, to be fair, the Amazing World of Gumball threw a lightsaber along with a bunch of other nifty inventions into a dumpster. So,
Yeah.
the air is human.
Yep. But Burns says he has a better idea as we cut to a casino. It turns out that Nessie is working in there as a bouncer as Homer approaches a slot machine, spinning it but losing. So, unfortunately, even though this should have been done in one of the versions of the game, they never decided to do this. They could have easily had Lapras do this at the Celadon Game Corner. You had it right there, people. But
that would be awesome.
Definitely, if she was like the bouncer like Nessie was here. But we get a really funny ending here with Homer basically saying, "Come on, Nessie, one more spin," as she then growls at him. The episode ends with Homer basically asking Nessie, "Okay, you want to get a shrimp cocktail?" And she goes, "Meh," with a little like funny thing like that. And Homer says, "Oh yeah, they're not great." And then Scottish music plays over the credits. And there's actually an added little joke at the Gracie Films thing because instead of doing the, do 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 music, it's Lisa saying, "Oh wow, this really sucks," from earlier in the episode.
Wow.
Yeah, really cute little gag they did there. And yeah, this is a pretty enjoyable episode of The Simpsons. Like I say, season 10, which definitely nowhere near like the classic era, but at the same time, it's not offensive. Like, it's not bad to watch. Like, you look at some of The Simpsons nowadays, which we're not going to go too in depth about bashing modern Simpsons, don't worry, but yeah, you can definitely tell it's a shell of its former self. Like, all the voice actors sound tired for the most part, and they ran out of ideas like 15 years ago at this point, and yeah, at this point, even like the Treehouse of Horror episodes kind of feel phoned in, so kind of a shame. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, even with debatably good episodes like this one where Marge gets into the millennial workplace lifestyle, as well as this one episode where it spoofs Primal a little bit, there aren't a whole lot of good episodes, and you can really tell that the voice actors are starting to lose their touch. It's honestly a miracle that Milhouse's voice actress got out when she did.
Yeah, that is true. That is something that very surprised that more of the voice actors. I mean, Marge right now, poor Julie Kavner. If you look at her and other stuff she did, like Woody Allen's Radio Days, where she had like a normal like speaking voice and that kind of more like a nasal whine, but still a normal speaking voice compared to how she sounds now, it's really such a shame, And like even Mr. Burns, he legitimately sounds 100 years old at this point, which takes away from a lot of the humor in a way. But go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, I also enjoy Marge's voice acting role from Lion King 1.5. That is a funny film and shows that you can have her in stuff and just have her sound normal instead of like Diet Toad, as it were. Not to mention, Lisa's done other stuff, and Bart's voice actress as well. Like, they've done amazing things. In fact, Bart was in the first generation of My Little Pony, of all things. Like, going from that to Simpsons, or whichever, honestly, I think Simpsons came first before My Little Pony. I could be wrong.
And the Twilight Zone movie.
Fair enough.
Yep,
but yeah, like going from that to something like Simpsons, like definitely a good idea in the moment, but like down the line, yeah, it's certainly one of those rough moments.
Yeah. But like I say, yeah, kind of a shame with The Simpsons, but we're going to talk more positively about The Simpsons now with the question of the week, which is, what is your favorite Simpsons episode? Which, granted, there's a lot to choose from there, a lot to choose from, but mine is pretty much easy because it's one that not a lot of people, I think, mention or bring up, but at the same time, it's one that, for me, just makes me laugh so hard, basically. It's the episode Bart on the Road, which, for the most part, it's not really, like I say, at the beginning of the episode is really good. When Bart actually gets on the road, for me anyway, it's nonstop laps from here on in. Everything from like, Bart, Nelson, Milhouse, and not Ralph. Sorry. Martin, thank you. I couldn't remember the stupid name there. And Martin, the part where they basically say, "Hey Bart, can we get ice cream?" "Okay." "Hey Bart, can we weigh the car at the weigh station?" "Okay." "Hey Bart, can we pick up the hitchhiker?" "I don't see why not." And it's the hitchhiker, and he's the guy from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's the hitchhiker from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Sawyer family hitchhiker. And he goes,
Nice.
"Hey Bart, can we stop for ice cream?" "Okay." And they all eating ice cream, and the hitchhiker's just letting it melt in his hand. And he says, I didn't think I was cured, but they needed the bed." The part where they go to Branson, Missouri, which, according to Bart, is Las Vegas if Ned Flanders designed it. Nelson sees Andy Williams and he goes, "Oh wow, Andy Williams!" Simps, we're gonna... Bart says, we don't have to stop there. Yes, we do. And then we cut to them. Oh, and then the boys are so bored except for Nelson who's crying. And he stands up and claps. Oh, yeah. Second encore, yeah.
I remember
where the-
that scene. Like,
Yeah.
I watched that scene on YouTube. Like, but we have to stop at that place. It's like, no, we don't. Yes, we do.
Yeah. But
Okay.
I would be remiss if I did not mention the classic episode part of it when it's all building up to when they finally get to Knoxville to the Wad Fur and they see the international world famous Knoxville Sun Sphere. Or as the old man there says, you mean the Wig Sphere? There ain't nothing up there but 42,000 unsold boxes of wigs. I love that they have this giant like structure they built for the World's Fair, and they're just using it as a wig storage place. To say nothing of the part where the guy basically says, "Now you're gonna buy a wig, or ain't ya?" And then it cuts to them basically sitting sad on the street in Millhouse saying, "I guess it was no one's fault. Fate was against us." And they're wearing all wacky wigs, and the whole reason they went there is because Millhouse read this travel guidebook that's from like 1982 that said about the World's Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee, which obviously was gone by the time the episode came out. And we get to probably the moment that makes me laugh so hard, which basically is Nelson basically going, I hate this place. He picks up like a tiny pebble, throws it at the wig sphere, and it just tips over instantly and destroys their rental car. And all the wigs fly out on the street. And they say, we're stranded. We have no money. We have no car. And then Nelson, on the plus side, I knocked over the wig sphere.
Yeah.
Classic.
Little
The Homer
miracle.
and Lisa subplot is really, really hilarious. But it's when they combine that it really gets funny. Which is when Lisa basically breathfully explains what happened to Bart and how he had to get a courier job, basically to try to get money to go home. And Homer just stares blankly, and you see like the background getting red. Yes, that is a pickle. Will you excuse me, please? He then puts on like the nuclear safety outfit and he starts screaming at it. And you hear him go, "Rrr!" And then he takes it off. And then like totally calmly, he sits down. He says, okay, I have made up my mind. I will wire transfer Bart the money to return home. Then when he does, I will murder him. It's just how calmly he says it. And again, the ending too is great because Marge has been totally ignorant of all of this. That she's been with Maggie, she's been home alone. And basically it ends with Homer and Marge sleeping, and basically Marge getting increasingly phone calls that she finds strange, like Principal Skinner. No, I think I would have known if Bart was in Hong Kong. And then she gets another phone call. Simpson DMV. No, my son does not have a license plate. And then she gets another phone call. Tennessee State Police. No, my son's car is not in a wig outlet. It's one of those things that again, it fits so perfectly. It's something that is so simple and yet really, really is funny. It's one of those that it's not on the all-time best list. It's not like Marge versus the monorail or anything like that. But man, it is funny. It is really, really funny when they want it to be. And that's why I think it's my favorite episode, because there's just joke after joke after joke, and they all land so perfectly. But yeah, that's going to be my choice for my favorite Simpsons episode, Bart on the Road, which if you haven't seen it, see it. It's hilarious. I kind of just spoiled it all for you, but regardless, that's what it is. So, Angron, what is your favorite Simpsons episode?
Oh, that's going to be a tough one because I haven't watched a whole lot of Simpsons. The most I got was like this one where it's like Homer doing a Lego episode, the aforementioned Primal homage for the most part, where Marge taps into her primal fight or flight reflexes, and it's basically done in the form of Gennady Tartakovsky's Primal, which peak, in my opinion. And again, that aforementioned millennial workplace lifestyle thing Marge really gets into, and Smithers finds absolutely appalling. Also, the Nessie episode, which is more or less a 6 or 7 out of 10 in my opinion.
Yep.
So in this case, we're gonna have to go a little outside the boundaries of The Simpsons for the most part,
Go ahead.
or the TV show, because we have like the comics, the game, and the crossover that they did with Family Guy. Because good lordy, that one was definitely a trip and a half. Because like, there's so much with that one. Bart and Stewie hanging out, Lisa being jealous of Meg's saxophone playing skills compared to her, which kind of sucks. Brian not being able to talk because like they don't have a talking dog. Like Homer's whole rivalry with Peter involving beer, and Pawtucket coming last after Duff, and it there's easily one of the most crazy chicken fights period. But I'm sadly gonna have to say
one thing that's funny about that episode. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So, no, continue. My apologies.
Okay, yeah. Then we have the Simpsons game, which is where I mostly got my Simpsons fix for the most part, because we have like several interesting game callbacks and like film callbacks. We have NeverQuest, which is basically a spoof of EverQuest and Lord of the Rings, more or less. We have, let's see here, we have Medal of Homer, which is parodying Medal of Honor and I think every generic World War II movie for the most part.
It's
then we have
every World War II shooter at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We also have the anime spoof, which is basically Mr. Sparkle, which was
Mr. Sparkle.
Yeah, Mr. Sparkle. Fun for Sparkle. And like it also
that's a classic one.
It also had a Pokemon spoof, and like there were just so many zany things about it. It had freaking Millhouse as Mr. Dirt, which was pretty funny for the most part, where he's like this big bad, but he's still like a child, and it's honestly funny. And I think my favorite part of that game was like Bart and Homer facing off against Matt Groening by first being all the goons around his lawn and like taking a leak on it as well, which it was so crazy. And then we have the boss fight itself, where they're like Homer has to get super blobby and ram into Matt Groening. And then like it cuts to later where they like beat Matt Groening, and then they just like freaking kick on his freaking corpse while he's down. Like it was the joke I referenced earlier, and it's honestly pretty hilarious. And the final battle, minor spoiler for a game that's like 20 some odd years old, but like they do a dance battle against God, and it's pretty funny.
It was fun.
Yeah, what?
It was fun. I grew up playing this game.
Yeah. We have the comics, which 2 or 3 stories ultimately come to find from that. The first is Bart getting knocked out by a Japanese box and going on this weird Japanese adventure, more or less. Another one is it's basically Bart donning his Bat Bart costume and basically working with Abe Simpson, who used to be a hero back in the day, which was pretty great. Yes. And what another good? Oh yeah, this one where Lisa Simpson is trying to retell the classic tale of Mark Twain, but instead it's Bart Fink, and it's basically just Western Indiana Jones, and it's so freaking zany. Like, and at the end, she's like, "You ruined the masterpiece," and everyone else is like, "Oh, yay, it's amazing!" And Bart's like, "See, it was a theatrical success." And Lisa's like, "I live in a town of idiots." So, with that all said, I think I'm absolutely going to have to go with the Simpsons game because it's the most entertaining. I grew up with it a little bit. I never played it, but it was still fun. And yeah, it's going to be my pick. You were saying, Lud, from earlier?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. First, let me talk about a couple of things. Number one is that the comics really, really are good. If you haven't seen the Simpsons comics, I highly recommend them because, as I mentioned earlier, they really are just as well written as the television show itself. And Man, it is a lot of fun. Like they do a lot of good ones. They have some that are actually sequels to episodes. Others that spoof other comics. Like for example, I think they spoof the for example all the Belgian comics. Like for example, they have one that's a parody of Tintin and like the Smurfs, and I believe they even did an issue that was a spoof of Asterix of all things, which is really funny.
They also did Death Note in one of the Treehouse of Horror comics.
Oh yeah, the Treehouse of
before
Horror
the show.
Yep. Yeah, as I was going to mention, the Treehouse of Horror comics are really, really dark. Like, they go way darker than they did on the show. There's one that's a parody of, there's one that's a spoof of basically EC Comics in that, with Bart going crazy trying to find the last page of a comic, and it turns out, spoiler warning for a comic book that is, probably 15 years old now, but basically what happens is that it turns out that the guy who wrote it is a monster, and we actually see the joke of the comic is that the last page is ripped out, like the fictional comic Bart basically is obsessed over. But in the tiny bit of the comic you can see that Bart got his face ripped off. And not like in a cartoony, wacky way, like realistic, like gore in that, which is really, really shocking.
Yikes.
They had I think like Rob Zombie and that right and they're like Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper wrote issues. Actually, it's like some real comic legends. And yeah, it really, really is good. The Treehouse of Horror comics and Simpsons comics in general. And the second thing to note is about the Simpsons Family Guy moment. What I was going to say is that it's ironic that Matt Groening was all for that when he infamously was against the crossover The Simpsons did with The Critic to the point where he had his name taken off of the episode. And that was the episode that gave us Hands Mole Man presents Man Getting Hit by Football.
Wow.
Yeah. And he took his name off that episode because he felt that a crossover with another show wasn't what he wanted The Simpsons to be. But then I guess 20 years later, he was like, crossover with Family Guy, okay. Kind of interesting, but, those are some really good choices right there, Definitely interesting overview of how The Simpsons is popular from someone who probably hasn't, has a different experience with it. So, let's see. Math, what would your choice be?
Typically speaking, I really like the Sideshow Bob episodes. My favorite, probably being everyone's favorite, Cape Fear. The one where it was the third Sideshow Bob episode, I believe. The one where they are in witness protection. And it ends with them on the boat and Sideshow Bob singing, which is how they capture him again. That one is my favorite of the Sideshow Bob episodes, but there's one episode that I think I'm like the only guy that really likes, just because I guess it came on at the right time for me and I was the right age for it. Marge, Be Not Proud.
Oh, that's the one with Bone Storm, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, everyone would know that as the Bart shoplifting episode. The emotional through line for it was really good to me because you don't really see that from Bart too often, where he actually has any kind of emotional through line. And I just really liked that it humanized Bart and showed that he really does care for Marge like a good son would. Also, in looking it up, and this was interesting to me, apparently I am not the only one that thinks that that's their favorite episode. A dude named Raphael Bob Waxberg cites it as his favorite Simpsons episode. The creator of BoJack Horseman.
Wow, I could definitely see that. Because
yeah, that explains a bit.
Very much, and yeah, that's the episode that has probably a gag that for that episode itself, it's Bart basically hallucinating all the video game characters taking it, except for the golfer who warns him not to, and they actually call back to that in a really, really funny way because The Simpsons and Sonic the Hedgehog crossed over in the Lego Dimensions video game series.
Nice.
There's an interaction with Bart and Sonic where Sonic goes, "Hey Bart, if you ever see one of those glowing puzzle pieces, take it," which is what he said in this episode. And again, that is really, really, like I say, funny they called back to it like that. But
that's
yeah,
pretty hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But no, like I said, it's definitely one of those things that really, really is a good one. You know, it has a good emotional payoff, and again, some really, really funny jokes. Like when Bart finally gets the video game, it turns out to be the boring golf video game, which I think every kid can basically relate to that, with being so engrossed in getting like a video game or something like that, and your parents get it and it's the wrong one or something at some time, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, classic. But no, that's a
times.
great,
Overdrive.
great. Yep. But that is a great choice right there. Let's see. Shark, what would your pick be?
Well, there's so many good choices. Like, yeah, Holy is a cool name, but I'll have to go with I'm not sure if I will say classic, but it has an interesting backstory because this episode was like a pilot of sorts. They wanted to see if the people will be interested in seeing a show that wasn't about the Simpsons, but about the resident of Springfield. And well, they made an episode that will play with that idea. I'm talking about 22 short films about Springfield.
Oh, yes, that is a good one.
Yes, it's a really unique concept because, as the title implies, it's not a whole episode focused on the Simpsons, but rather a lot of stories focused on many of the background characters. Like there's the story of the cops at the Krusty Burgers, or no, I mean the Wiggum getting stuck with Snake in the weapon shop with that guy. Lisa getting gum in her hair. Dr. Nick trying to cure Grandpa.
Yeah.
The Cletus small short where he found the boots at the phone line, and of course the one everybody today knows and loves, the one that everyone can quote in their memory, Tim Hams.
Yep.
Nice.
Steve
I
Hens.
made it despite your directions. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do the whole thing, but you know.
Everyone can. Basically, everyone knows basically what it is.
And
But yeah, no. Honestly, my favorite part of the episode actually is the last joke where Professor Frink runs up hurriedly and he says, "I hope I'm here. I hope I made it. It's time for my show." And he holds up a title card. The tomfoolery of Professor Frink. Professor Frink, he makes you laugh, he makes you think. What the thing? And then it cuts off. Oh, the monkeys are gonna pay for this. The fire in his
Yeah.
lab with the monkeys made him late. Classic. But yeah, that is
Yeah,
a great
The
one. Like,
monkeys are gonna pay for this.
says I go ahead, Shark. Sorry.
you know,
Dude.
an approach that they did that they didn't have to do, but it's a really clever one, is that most of the stories don't end and suddenly start the next story. There's like some sort of transition between them. Like, Dr. Nix ends with him shocking Grandpa, and there's a small blackout that transitions to Moss Bar where a light is flickering enough, or where Lisa's being chased by a bee. We see the bee flying around, and it makes its way to Burns and Smither, who, well, that's another fun segment where Smither gets knocked out by the bee, and Burns is like, well, I have to do it my own. Now, if you're listening to me, get your feet on the pedal and start pedaling.
Yeah. Of all the episodes that become memes, they definitely picked a really good one. Let's do it that way.
Yeah.
They definitely picked that classic episode because, again, it's kind of a shit. In a way, it's kind of a shame we never get the spin up, but at the same time, it led to this episode, and it definitely was worth it for that.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Of
definitely.
course, it will be interesting to see if they actually went through it. Like, oh, we didn't get a story about Sideshow Bob. What will it be about? Oh, we didn't get a story about Kent Rockman. What will it be about? So, yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
definitely.
at
Kind of
least one more episode, like a sequel episode at later season, but oh well.
Yep. I think they did it so perfectly the first time that it's kind of hard for them to see something else. But like you said, it definitely is a great classic one right there. But anyway, let's see. Stryker, what would your choice be?
This it took me some time to think about this, but then I remembered a certain episode from season 7 that actually made Bart my favorite character.
Oh.
Marge Be Not Proud.
Oh,
Oh, wow, 2 of them with the same
that's
episode. Nice.
It's it just, I don't know, it just made me feel like, with all the antics with with all the antics that Bart's normally up to, it made me think like he's just a kid, because it's just this entire episode was just so sweet, to be honest, and it just I loved it so much.
Yeah, I definitely can see that because, yeah, again, like as Math basically said, it really, really is a good one, and it really, really works out. Yep, really, really good. But that's going to be basically it for the question of the week. Now it's time for the ranking of the Dragoness Scale now, which is going to be very interesting because Nessie, this version of Nessie is very interesting in the fact that, number one, the design is basically meant to be comical and kind of goofy looking. So in terms of looks, it's supposed to look like a little silly and off-putting in that, but at the same time, it still has a really good design. It has like the Simpsons overbite that they love doing, and again, it fits with the character. Color scheme is interesting considering it wasn't meant to happen, and I think Frank Welker's performance definitely elevates Nessie. Like just a little like it does at the end, just like that little bit of emotion. It really does add to the character. At the same time, she's not like a really high scoring character because she really only shows in like the last like maybe 5 minutes of the episode, and even at that, she's not the main focus. But at the same time, I can't think of anything to object to her, so I'm gonna give Nessie a probably higher than she deserves, 7 out of 10.
Nice.
I think what it is a lot of it is Frank Welker giving her so much character that it definitely fits with it. But that's gonna be my thing, 7 out of 10. So let's see, Angron, what would you give her?
I am also gonna go 7 out of 10 because like she doesn't do too much, and the design is a little bit basic. Like I don't mind the top jawline. It kind of does remind me a little bit of Quagmire, but I can look past that. But overall, I do like it. It's that she's cute. The time we do have, she's basically somewhat a strong presence, and like the fact that this was basically done so that Burns could look better than Arthur Fortune is honestly pretty great, and I really do want to see more of her, despite it coming at the risk of them milking fricking The Simpsons more, which I don't want to see. But if they do have to do it, then at least have this Nessie return at some point,
Yep. But at least she showed up in the Disney and the not Disney. At least she showed up in the Simpsons Tapped Out game, so at least they remembered her with that.
Yep.
Yep. So let's see, a 7 out of 10. That's good. Let's see, Math. What do you give her?
So, a little interesting fact. In our now 113 episodes, this is our 6th Nessie. So, we've been doing a lot
Yep.
of these. And unfortunately, this is going to be one of the lesser ones. I do like the design. I wish that there was some sort of characterization to it because, unfortunately, well, at least I get to pull this one out. It's just giant monster.
Nice.
It really is carried by the design, and that Matt Groening's style does work for it, and with a little touch of personality at the end with the bouncer scene. But generally speaking, this is just a interesting take on a Nessie, and that's all you get. So I can't really go higher than a 6.
I
All
can
good,
see
all
why.
good. Yep. So let's see, Shark. What would you give her?
There's a lot to like about this version of the character. It has a design that really blends into the Simpsons universe pretty well. Maybe the teeth can be a little distracting, but not too much, And I really enjoy the twist that she doesn't go crazy over the flash camera. It's Mr. Burns who does it, so that's a great subversion. And well, what we see at the end in the working in the casino, so she is sapient enough to. Well, she actually has a character. She has a personality. She is not a wild beast. However, it's kind of complicated because I can't give her anything. I don't know why, but I can't give her anything higher than a 7 as well. Maybe it's because we don't see her after this episode, which shouldn't be weird. A lot of this stuff happens in the Simpsons, and I don't know. I kind of went to see how she would have looked with the green color rather than the purple we got. It might be a little unfitting in my opinion, but overall, great character, personality, design that works. It's just the color that's kind of weird, but yeah, I'm going with a 7 out of 10 for her.
Yep, I see why. Yep. And Stryker, what would you give her?
I'm going with similar sentiment. 7. I just thought she was cute, to be honest. And once again, a great character that needs to be used more often.
I agree.
Nice, nice. Yep, that's definitely a good one right there. So that's going to be it for this week. If you have any questions, or if you want to tell us if you think Nessie should have also appeared in Futurama or Disenchantment,
Yes.
you can feel free to email us at fiorydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fiorydiscourse. Visit us at Blue Sky at Blue Sky Fiery Discourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel and the playlist. Like and subscribe for the video. Leave a comment, and any and all comments are appreciated. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is looking to move to a group home in the UK. Any and all help with that will be assisted. A link in the description. Next week, we're going to be talking about something a lot older than The Simpsons. And so we're going to be talking about the 1959 B movie, The Giant Gila Monster.
Oh boy.
Oh, beer.
Definitely going to be a really, really interesting one, that's for sure, because there's a lot to talk about with that movie. It's a B movie, but a fun B movie. Don't expect it to be as bad as like Future War, because it's not a good movie, but it is an enjoyable movie. Let's put it this way.
I'll bet.
Yep, but there's lots to talk about that for next week. But until then, thank you all for watching, and take care.
Eat my shorts.
Nah.
Ta, perfect way to end it.
Peace out.
Nice.
do, 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 do.
With it.
Had to end it like that. Perfect, perfect. Well, see y'all next week.